to a state of harmony, calmness, and serenity where individuals and groups coexist without fear of violence, conflict, or harm. In Nigeria, in the Nigerian context, peace is a coveted luxury given the country's history of ethnic and religious tensions, political instability, and insecurity.
Well, sacrifice in the context of peace, again, means giving up something valuable, precious to achieve a much more significant goal or even benefit.
In the pursuit of peace, sacrifice can take many forms, such as compromise, that is, putting aside individual interest or demands for the greater good. Forgiveness, which is letting go of past grievances and hurts to move forward, and service is working selflessly for the benefit of others or the community.
All right, sacrifice can also take the form of patience. That means enduring difficult circumstances without having to resort to violence or aggression. Now, dialogue is also another way of engaging in open and honest communication to resolve conflicts peacefully.
In Nigeria, peace and sacrifice are intrinsically connected. To achieve sustainable peace, various stakeholders must be willing to make sacrifices, such as political leaders, putting national interest above personal ambitions, ethnic and religious groups, setting aside historical grievances and biases, citizens, embracing diversity and promoting tolerance.
And that's not all, military and security forces exercising restraint and respecting human rights. There's also community leaders encouraging and dialoguing, and of course mediation or mediating over violence.
Well, that's true, Claire. By making these sacrifices, Nigerians can work together to build a more harmonious and peaceful society, where the value of human life is cherished and the country's diversity is celebrated.
All right, now, so as Muslims all over the world, especially in Nigeria, celebrated Eid al-Kabir, a festival that honors the willingness of Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him, to sacrifice his only son, Ismail. We'll reflect on the theme of sacrifice for the greater good of all Nigerians.
In a country where grappling with insecurity, political tensions, and economic challenges, the pursuit of sustainable peace requires sacrifices from all stakeholders, from the government to citizens, religious leaders to community stakeholders. Sacrifice is required. One significant question to ask is, what sacrifice are we willing to make to ensure a harmonious and prosperous Nigeria, Claire? What sacrifice are we willing to?
Absolutely, and sacrifice, is contagious to peace, and in whichever way, of course, there are different, strands. There are the spiritual strands of, sacrifice, and it's all over. And I've not seen any, religion that does not, link sacrifice with peace and all that. And even the other, philosophies also, propound, sacrificing for peace, forbearing, giving of charity giving and all that. So, I mean, sacrifice is a whole lot of, virtuous acts to promote peace.
Anyway, that's our discussion today. All right. Well, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. I am Ademola Adeoye.
And I'm Claire Adelabo Abdul Razak, and I join Demola in welcoming you to the program. And once again, let me use this opportunity to say Barka de Sallah to all our Muslim brothers and sisters. Today is the second day of the holiday, and I hope that before the end of the program, we'll be having our Salah Ram meets, of course.
Claire. Let's go there now.
All right, we will be exploring our intersection of faith, peace, and nation building, and also examine the sacrifices that are necessary for building a brighter future for Nigeria. And our panel of discussants will provide us with useful and insightful analysis, and we will hear also from them how to make remarkable sacrifices for peace. And the program is reaching you on the network service of the NTA. Chukwudi Okodigbaja should be able to join us at some point for the newspaper review, but of course that will not be before we get highlights of the news from Zenret Digmon. Good morning, Zenret.
Good morning, Claire and Ademola. And here's the morning news. President Bola Tinubu will today depart Lagos for Pretoria, South Africa, to attend the inauguration of President Cyril Ramaphosa. A statement by Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Ajuri Ngilali, states that the inauguration of President Ramaphosa follows his re-election as president for his second term. President Tinubu will return to Nigeria after the ceremony. Now, the Minister of Information and Communication, and National Orientation rather, Mohammed Idris, has reacted to rumors being circulated that the Murtala Mohammed Expressway in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, has been renamed as Wole Soyinka Way. In a statement, the minister says renaming of the Murtala Mohammed Expressway has never been contemplated by this administration. He notes that on June 4, 2024, President Bola Tinubu inaugurated a new road in the FCT, codenamed Arterial Road N20 from Katampe to Jahi, which links the existing Outer Northern Expressway, also known as Murtala Mohammed Expressway, to the Northern Parkway, also called Ahmadu Bello Way. During the inauguration, the FCT Minister Nyesom Wike proposed to the President that the road be named after Professor Wole Soyinka, and the President agreed. Therefore, it is the Arterial Road N20 that is named after Professor Soyinka. The Murtala Mohammed Expressway remains unchanged and continues to bear the name of our esteemed former head of state, General Murtala Ramat Mohammed. The air component of Operation Hadarin Daji says it has successfully neutralized more than 80 terrorists in Faskari local government area of Katsina State through airstrikes. The operation was carried out after intelligence revealed that the terrorists, numbering more than 100, were burning houses at a settlement near Gidankari village. The strikes resulted in the destruction of their motorcycles and disrupted their activities in the area. The terrorists were reportedly linked to notorious kingpin Yusuf Yellow and his associate Rabi Imani. The chief of the air staff, Air Marshal Hassan Abubakar, commended the efforts of the air component and other security agencies for diminishing the capabilities of terrorist elements in the northwest and praised their efforts during a visit to the 213 Forward Operating Base in Katsina on June 17, 2024, saying the successful operation is a testament to the effectiveness of the military's efforts in combating terrorism in the region. And from Saudi Arabia, where pilgrims for the 2024 Hajj in the country are currently at Muna Valley. This is part of the requirements for completing the Hajj rituals. Some Nigerian pilgrims spoke on their experience at the holy site.
So we worked for like 2 to 3 hours. We were tired, but alhamdulillah for everything, but we made it.
We should learn from it and love ourselves, sacrifice for each other, and let's make our country great.
And still from Saudi Arabia, one of the religious practices during Hajj exercise, particularly on the 9th day of Zulhijjah, is removal and replacement of kiswa, also known as the cover of sacred house of Kaaba, adorned in the inscription of Allah. Journalists under the Hajj Media Hub were on a tour of production of the suitable material for covering the holiest place in Islam.
I'm so happy to know that the Egyptian cotton is participate in Al-Kiswa,
حيث يتم العمل كما سمعنا من القائمين.
We have seen that they are almost completing the production of kiswa, usually changed at every Hajj.
That's the news at this time. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Ademola and Claire after this commercial break. Stay with us.
The head of the Civil Service of the Federation, Dr. Folashade Yemieson, CFR, invites civil, public servants, stakeholders, and the general public to the 2024 Civil Service Week with the theme, Educate an African Fit for the 21st Century, Building Resilient Education Systems for Increased Access to Inclusive, Lifelong, Quality, and Relevant Learning in Africa. Activities lined up in commemoration of the week are as follows. Interactive session with civil servants from all MDAs, Wednesday, June 19, 2024, time 10 a.m., visual online. Public Service Lecture, Thursday, June 20, 2024, 9 a.m., NAF Conference Center, Jahi, Abuja. Guest speaker, Professor Peter Okebokola, OFR, Commissioning of Fish Housing Estate, Friday, June 21st, 2024, time 10 a.m., Gwagwalada. Sporting activities, Saturday, June 22, 2024, 7 a.m., Moshood Abiola Stadium, Abuja. Awards and Gala Night, Saturday, June 22, 2024, time 7 p.m., Abuja Continental Hotel, Abuja. Special guest of honor, His Excellency, President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. Interdenominational Church Thanksgiving Service, June 23, 2024, time 10 a.m., Ezososia Church of God, Mabushi, Abuja. Announcer, Dr. Deborah O.N. Odo, Permanent Secretary, Service Policies and Strategies Office. For Head of the Civil Service of the Federation.
We're live in the open market for Epic 10X Challenge. My people, today I will show you how the power of new Epic 10X gives your toilet a better cleaning than bleach.
Than bleach?
Yes, so.
Impossible.
Toilets have stains which bleach cannot clean effectively. But Epic is thicker and sticks better, which gives 10X better cleaning versus bleach and kills germs.
Oh, wow.
You can now see that Epic is better than bleach.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we swear in colors, we stand up in demand, we make solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Diversity is unique, we have more than just solution.
We are Nigeria, strength in unity, we know they carry life. We are Nigeria, together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
You have to move from the point where you protect and defend your religion to a point where you also recognize the rights of the other person, of the other religion, and protect it. So if I am protecting my own territory and my own people and trying to emphasize their rights and protect their rights, I should also be thinking about how to protect the rights of the others.
Both Islam and Christianity recognize and defer to God, and both recognize the temporariness of the life of this world, and that ultimately we all go back to God for the day of reckoning, when everybody will render an account of his life on this temporary abode.
Euro 2024, live on Sporty TV.
Thanks for staying with us. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Up next is newspaper review.
All right, welcome. Time to introduce Chukwudi Ugbaja for the newspaper review. Chukwudi.
Hello, Claire. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm fine. Could be better, though.
Oh, one day at a time, whatever happens. We always pray for better things to happen. But we must be content with God, what God provides at the moment.
In all things, give thanks.
Exactly, my dear brother. It is good to be alive above everything else.
Yeah.
Did you get to eat salara meat?
My dear Muslim compatriots, I'm sorry, but I have to say the way it is. I know salad this time around, but it is understandable. It's not going to last forever.
Are they picking
it
your
will
calls?
get better.
Are they picking your calls, your friends, your Muslim friends?
Whether
they are picking your calls.
Do you have a worse case than mine? Come on, it's quite
Don't
understandable.
Worry. It will come.
It will come.
Yes, Salah is still.
And please, I hate to be accused of dropping names here, but the daughter of the secretary to the Sadowna in those days, Hajia Hannah Halilu, he says, people who are ungrateful do not attract further
Yes.
mercies from on high and all that. Whatever the situation is, give thanks.
You know,
when you learn to give thanks, something inside you makes you feel that you can conquer at any time. It is called positivism.
You know, there's a Yoruba saying, a version of this, and Demola, you correct me. It says, "Eni ba dupe ore oni, ari tolagba."
Eni ba dupe ore ano.
Ore ano.
Ari to nigba.
Ari to nigba.
That is, if you give thanks for what happened yesterday.
Yesterday.
There's an assurance that you will get
today.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're not thanking me.
I was almost going to tell you Benue song. At least I know that one.
At this rate, let us get on with the news.
Okay. You have two papers there.
Let me start with Leadership newspaper. And all right, the lead story is on the Murtala Mohammed Way, not renamed after Shoyinka federal government. And I think that the report our colleague Zemret read this morning during the highlight of the morning news did a very good explanation of what transpired. But in case you didn't get it, Leadership has it. It says inadequate. It's there on page 6. I move on to the other stories. Inadequate infrastructure. Nigeria fails to stop 1.4 trillion naira loss to medical tourism. As public hospitals face shortage of health workers, others, private facilities rip off helpless patients. And there's also a story just above the nameplate, tenure expiration. Rivers youth take over local government secretariats and ignore Wike's critics. CSOs urge President Tinubu, and there are also quite a just on the inner page there, Obasanjo visits Remi Tinubu for Salah celebration. It's right there as well. And APC group rejects nomination of LP PDP chieftains. The story is on page 4. And the other story there, Obi Ford's plan to buy new presidential jet amid hardship. That's the leadership for you. I quickly move on now to the blueprint. And the blueprint focuses attention on minimum wage saga. It says experts slam labor over minimum wage, urge new approach to negotiation, say going beyond 62,000 naira dicey for FG, want cost of governance reduced. And just below that, Tinubu's reforms meant to refocus economy, achieve sustainable growth. Abdul Razak. That's Kwara State Governor Abdul Rahman Abdul Razak saying there, or being quoted there. Now, heat halts pilgrims from stone-throwing rite in Makkah. It's on page 6. Stability now restored to foreign exchange market on Onuga. And albinism community loses 4 members to cancer in Anambra State. Let's see if there are other stories. Okay, I think. Okay, sports. National trials. Ofili rules women 100 event. Ajayi takes men title. Congratulations to them. Okay, Demola.
Are you done?
Yes. Please.
Okay, I have the Vanguard newspaper with me, and just above the nameplate, Rivers youths occupy local government headquarters as chairman's tenure expires. Details on page 14. Tension in prisons over rising food inflation. 750 naira now inadequate to feed one inmate per day. Details is on page 9. Edo governorship election, I'll reenact Oshiomola's infrastructural revolution of Pueblo. That's details on page 16. And the blue strip says Nigeria's oil output rises to 1.46, not 1.7, claimed by federal government. The suspected herdsmen stormed Taraba community, killed 6 villagers. Details of that story is on page 6. Local government autonomy will wait Supreme Court's decision, says Senate. Okay, we will await Supreme Court's decisions, Senate. The details of that story is on page 8. Nigerian struggle as high drug prices fuel health crisis. Out-of-pocket payment on the increased patient care threatened. Rising costs force resort to herbal remedies. Traditional healers worry and all that stuff. Then the picture there shows the leaders of the National Assembly paying the Salah homage to the president in Lagos. And down it's Obasanjo visit First Lady. Somebody said yesterday, they said Baba is always very wise. He knows where to eat his ram. Even if nobody is giving him meat, he knows where to go to eat ram. So he's visiting the First Lady of Lagos, the First Lady of Nigeria, Senator Oluremi Tinubu. Then we have this Finidi George, 2000 and the Finidi George, NFF asks Dangles over Oseme, opens disciplinary proceedings against him. All right, Chooks, it's over to you.
You know, let me start with the last but one. You know, the Obasanjo phenomenon is something I find. I recounted my encounter with Obasanjo over a handshake as an AIT reporter in those days. The man is an enigma somewhat. Yeah. You go out there, some people are going to tell you the president and then the former president, they don't see eye to eye and all that. Some people could just drink Panadol for other people's headache. Leave statesmen, politicians, whatever you want to call them alone. They know the path they're treading. And that takes me to lead by example, Nigerians reply Tinubu. In there, there's another one where the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, is saying purchasing a new aircraft does not suit our present circumstance and all that. And you say, the beauty of democracy is that everyone is allowed to air their opinion. But some people will tell, is the man who wears the shoe that knows where it pinches. Stanley Makebu stunned me at a media council meeting we had in Abuja when I was once a reporter. He told us, stop searching for the truth. You won't find it. But I said, my own Stanley Makebu, one of the people who make me want to embrace journalism with everything I have, saying this. When you get into leadership, certain things change. Let Nigerians keep talking. I hope I made a point there.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, please.
Let's look at Nigeria fails to stop 1.4 trillion naira loss to medical tourism. When you say Nigeria fails to stop, I don't understand. What do you think of this report?
Nigeria fails to stop what? Please.
1.4 trillion naira loss to medical tourism.
That is, more people are still trooping out.
Yes. The choice of couching a headline is the prerogative, the discretion of the editor. There was one headline I said I will never hold back from criticizing. It was in the Vanguard in those days. Finance minister returns from Germany, returns to Nigeria in a wheelchair. It was Chiroma then. And I said, another editor could have said, finance minister back to Nigeria still needs more medical attention. It depends on who's thinking. Sometimes license can come into it. So, but in this case, I think it's a little hazy. I would have liked a more direct, couching that makes people know exactly what.
Exactly, because
that's what I'm thinking here.
On the inside,
it's not exactly like the Chiroma case.
Yes, on the inside page, okay, it says inadequate infrastructure. Nigeria fails to stop 1.4 trillion.
That is the thing.
Eventually,
you will know that it's because of that.
Exactly.
Infrastructure.
But Claire, there's quickly, please. My time here always is not very friendly sometimes. Nigerians struggle as high drug prices fuel health crisis.
Yeah.
I went to buy sugar, what do you call it? Blood sugar, when blood sugar is high. And
your medication for blood sugar
control. I found out that one of the drugs was rather too high. I eventually went to one that still serves the same purpose, but is not as high as that one. But I told the pharmacist that if we need to subsidize anything, agriculture and drugs, essential drugs, drugs for hypertension, drugs for malaria, those ones should be subsidized, because the very existence of the people depends on those drugs being available and all that. So I find this rather of something of concern. Nigerians struggle as high drug prices fuel health crisis. High drug prices fuel health crisis. We have to be careful that to ensure that a situation that does not permit the best of meals to get into our tummies is not compounded by the palliatives, medical palliatives, we need to take when nature does not get friendly all the time.
And another report says that Nigerians are finding, solace in herbal remedies and traditional healers now because of the high cost of...
I don't quite like it because I'm one of those who believe that there are some herbal drugs that are far better than the synthetic drugs we go.
No, we talk about it.
So an inferiority complex thing about I don't quite.
But the issue,
I think the issue is packaging, right?
The issue that the orthodox, medicine practitioners say, it's about knowing the dosage, being able to determine the dosage because of the toxicity content in our heads.
Exactly.
So once you are able to decipher the dosage you're taking, they're not saying no, that these herbs are not. Of course, the capsules we take are all made from
exactly.
Yeah. So we must be able to make this clarification. They're not saying you cannot use your herbs.
You remind me.
You're saying no, the dosage of what you're taking, and let it be prescribed for you.
That's very important.
But I also want to say that
they also need to improve the packaging as well.
Yes, packaging. And measurement and all that. These are all part of the things that
if we had worked on all those things, those herbal medicines could be some of the things we're exporting by now.
Yes, because somebody, for instance, I think when I was going to talk about that, the dongoyaro leaf, the dongoyaro, the moringa leaf.
Claire, don't leave me alone. You're taking me back to when bitter leaf could cure everything, according to my father.
You know that was what we resorted to during the time of COVID.
Yeah.
Just hold on.
Remember during the time of COVID?
The dongoyaro.
And did it not work?
I actually know.
It worked.
I actually know that, the dongoyaro tree, you could use different parts of that dongoyaro, the leaves, the bark, the root and all that.
It's like the cow, it's like the palm tree.
Yes.
Nothing is wasted.
Nothing is wasted. Nothing is wasted. But again, you need to know the toxicity content.
Because
so that it doesn't damage
there are some quantities
kidneys.
you take, you feel a little dizzy sometimes.
All right.
Even bitter leaf.
Okay. Thank you very much.
A correction, please. I was talking about a hajia and akilu, not halilu.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chooks, for
Thank you.
coming on Good Morning Nigeria.
Bless you. Thanks a lot.
So we'll see you tomorrow. All right. We'll take a break now. Good Morning Nigeria continues. Stay with us.
The new Milo 3-in-1 Milky and Creamy is truly milky and contains calcium. No need to add milk for that rich, creamy cup, which helps to nourish and energize your kids.
We're live in the open market for Epic 10X Challenge. My people, today now, I will show you how the power of new Epic 10X gives your toilet a better cleaning than bleach.
Than bleach?
Yes, so. Impossible. Toilets have stains which bleach cannot clean effectively. But Epic is thicker and sticks better, which gives 10X better cleaning versus bleach and kills germs.
Oh, wow.
You can now see that Epic is better than bleach.
Other than work, what do people discuss with their co-workers?
Family problem.
How you are shy, you are just giggling. She's giggling. My other sister, love it. She's the apropos of the house. Name something people do at the cinema that annoys you. Talk.
Intimacy with their partner.
So you and Yomi, when I know they go cinema, go do intimacy.
We don't like to disturb others.
Excuse me. I'm not the one doing the survey. Survey says.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
This na Go TV, and now for here you fit watch better football from Mbappe. Ball wey Kane use the TNT, Ronaldo. And all the big boys we go follow drag the who go be Oga of Europe. Now who go become the Baba of Europe? Watch all the 51 games live on Top Super Sport from Go TV Jolly to Super Plus and Go TV Stream. Euro 2024 live. It goes sweet on Top Go TV. Love it.
All right, welcome back. This is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Let's begin our conversation with a background on sacrificing for sustainable peace, and it's put together by our correspondent Joseph Oteng.
With the Salah celebrations and holidays stay on, messages of sacrifice and peaceful coexistence keep hovering the airspace. Among these admonishments was that from the President Bola Tinubu asking Nigerians to imbibe and carry on with the lessons of sacrifice of the season and play their individual roles towards actualizing a greater Nigeria. He says the essential ingredients to nation building are contained in collective purpose, will, and action to bring about great change. Messages like this take into context the diverse nature of Nigeria, with multi-ethnic, cultural, and different religious affiliations. It posits that if Nigeria can enhance her diversity and embrace unity of purpose, it will develop to become one of the greatest countries in the world. Example of this was demonstrated in the struggle for independence from the British colonial administration, where leaders from different parts of the country and from various ethnic groups as well as associations kept their differences aside to fight for the country's freedom. This patriotic zeal to many lasted until politicians started sowing seeds of ethnic and religious divides for their selfish interests. Today, the challenges of corruption, crime, and communal clashes, among others, crippling socio-economic development of the country, are attributed to this sense of self and individualism. As the current administration works towards peace and tranquility for sustainable development, it continues to drum the word sacrifice as the guide. This entails putting the country above self, shunning corrupt practices, upholding the rule of law, justice and fairness, accountability and inclusivity. These elements peace and development experts believe cultivate sense of belongingness, discipline, and nurture a sustainable, peaceful, and prosperous country. The question, however, are how deep has this unity remained a hindrance to peace building? How much sacrifice are Nigerians ready to make? And what should be the top priority amidst current socio-economic realities? On Good Morning Nigeria today, guests will learn ways towards building sustainable peace in view of the country's quest for greatness.
Thank you, Joseph Watson, for that background report. Joining us here to discuss sacrificing for sustainable peace, let me introduce Reverend John Joseph Hayab, Country Director, Global Peace Foundation, Nigeria. It's my pleasure to have you join us.
Thank you very much, and happy Salah to all brothers and sisters in this country.
All right, you're welcome, sir. Also joining us is Professor Joseph Ochogo, Director General, Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution, IPCR. Prof, you are welcome.
Thank you so very much. I'm delighted to be in the studio here. Barka de Salah to Nigerians and everyone around the world, and wishing us all a very peaceful holidays.
All right. Also, we'll be joined from our Kanu studio by Dr. Saleh Momale, who is Executive Vice Chairman, Kaduna State Peace Commission. Once we have him, we're trying to establish connection with him. Once we do that, we'll be able to take him on. But he will be joining us from our Kanu studio. Also joining us via Zoom from Ode-Omu in Osun State is Imam Fa'ad Adeyemi. Yes, that's him. Funny that you are joining us from Osun State, Imam Fa'ad Adeyemi. Good to see you, Barka de Salah. This is surprising that you're joining us from Osun State.
Yes, my morning. I'm even surprised Reverend I is there now this morning. I don't think I travel, but thank you. I'm pleased to be part of this morning.
Okay, let's quickly start with you. Barka de Salah, even though we didn't see our Salah Ram mates here in the studio, but according to my understanding of the Quran's teaching, it encourages all Muslim brothers and sisters to act justly and, of course, make sacrifices at this or during, especially during this period, the Eid al-Kabir. Are there stories that you want to relate with us in this regard?
Please, I can't hear you well.
I said that, as far as I know, I can tell, the Quran enjoins all Muslim brothers and sisters to act justly and make sacrifices for peace, especially during this period of Eid al-Kabir festival. Is there any particular experience that you want to share with us that happened during this period?
Well, thank you so much. You know, the greatest challenge to peace is hunger. Perhaps you don't know that is the greatest challenge to peace. A situation where people are hungry and nobody is there to care for them. Naturally, an hungry person is an angry person. Let me use the experience I have at Alabama mortality president. Despite that, I don't want to talk about Alabama mosque. A day before, we made sure that we began to share things that people gave to us. And on this day, after sharing just the food in the mosque and the fresh meat support able to get, a man held the pillar and started crying.
Hey, but they can't hear now. We can't hear.
He said it was lost hope of where he was going to get anything to eat because he did not have anything with him.
Well, yes, we seem to be having some audio challenge there with the Zoom. So let's just come back to the studio right away. And Reverend John, let's look at what does the Christian faith, how does the Christian faith view sacrifice, in line of, this ongoing celebration?
Well, the scripture in Hebrews chapter 12 verse 14 says, pursue peace with all men. When you are asked to pursue, it means there is something you need to do. And that your act of contribution or action itself, it's sacrifice. It takes sacrifice to protect the name of your family. You have to deny your rights, refuse to do certain things that ordinarily by right you can do them, but for the name of your family, you don't want to do them. For the sake of God, you don't want to do them. So anything you deny yourself doing to protect your name, to ensure you do right, to ensure you live well with people, is an act of sacrifice, because sacrifice is denying yourself something for a positive result. Though people could deny themselves something for negative results. So in Christianity, sacrifice is what we do every day. The Bible tells us that if we must follow Jesus, we must first deny ourselves, take up our cross daily, and follow him. So, but we are looking at sacrificing for sustainable peace.
Yes.
So when you want to connect this, it's simply saying that, look, to ensure that there is peace in the world, to ensure that there is peace in your house, to ensure that there is peace in the community where you live, to ensure that there is peace in your nation, you have a role to play. To play those roles are not easy decisions. They're not just something you want to really do. But for the sake of that sacrifice, you will do what you need to do to bring peace for your home. Look, as a husband, you sacrifice certain things to make sure that your house is at peace. As a father, I'm talking about one person, but looking at him from different angle, you sacrifice so many things for your peace and your children. And as a man, you sacrifice so many things to work. I was sharing in a church recently, and I said, some of you children don't understand the sacrifice your parents do. I think exactly on Sunday when we are celebrating Father's Day. And I say, you don't know that some of these fathers you see go through pains. Some people out there shout on them, speak to them anyhow, but the man is sacrificing to ensure that he earns a living and take care of the family. If not for that, he will just talk back at the other person. He will even ask him to stop. So we do sacrifice every day to gain certain things. So peace itself requires sacrifice from us. Sacrificing what we think is our right, sacrificing what we want to enjoy, sacrificing and denying ourselves certain things for the community to live at peace. Because when you look at the bigger picture, refusing to sacrifice could lead to serious problems, serious consequences. So as we learn how or what it means to sacrifice for sustainable peace in Nigeria, I want to sincerely plead with all of us. This is not just about men, this is about every Nigerian. Now, what are those things you do that you know that if you do not do them the way you are doing it, Nigerians will be better, or Nigeria will be better?
Okay, thank you, Reverend Hayab. Let's lay a conceptual framework for this now, and that's why I want to bring in Professor Joseph Ochogo. Everybody's talking about peace, peace, but I know that international relations theorists tell us that, look, peace is not just the absence of war, violence, or conflict. It's much more than that. So within the, I'd like for you to help us situate the concept of sacrifice, within the context of world peace.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that I would say that sacrifice is something you do whether you like it or not. And I would take it from two lanes. One, the selfish lens, and then secondly, the selfless lens. What that means is that as a human being, you naturally have to sacrifice for you to be alive and to live with your neighbor. The second component is that as a human being, beyond yourself, you have to catch a larger vision, knowing that for you to exist with your neighbor, you have to be selfless. For you to establish that level of relationship between yourself, the selfish component of you, and the selfless component of you that connects with the second party. And it's the same thing too with interstate relationship. No state can exist alone. States must exist connectedly. So therefore, for you to protect your own national interest, which is self now, you have to connect with another state. That is the selfless component of it. So it is this same interrelationship between A and B, between one person and another person, between one community and another community, that establishes this element of sacrifice. Self can be pursued in the negative, which is one, lack of indiscipline, lawlessness, you know, and all that, because you want to aggrandize yourself. And that leads you to a state of anarchy, chaos, you know, disorder. The other component, which is the selfless component, you know, that you need to engage, takes yourself now at that level of discipline, which he talks about, at that level of organization, at that level of love, at that level of tolerance, you know, that connects you to that selfless component, that you now permeate it to your neighbor and to your wider society. And then you can begin to have what we call issues around peace, order, development, sustainability, you know, inclusion, and all other components that you need to do. So every human being has that component of self, you know, and selfishness and the selflessness component of it. What we preach and what we try to advocate largely is to ensure that the self, that is the selfish component, is subsumed, you know, downplayed, and allow the selfless component of your being as a human being, you know, to take prominence, you know, in the society. And that is where vision comes in. Vision for a better self. Vision for you to contribute meaningfully to the wider society. Vision, you know, for the nation to be built. Vision for children that are not unborn to be planned for, to ensure that they have good education, good roads, and good all that. And that is where agendas too are drawn, you know, by the governments, both at federal, subnational, and at local level, and at family level. So all these things, they transcend one level to another level, you know, in terms of how we try to build peace. But like I said, whether we like it or not, as human beings, we are all sacrificial beings. So we must trust people. We must have confidence in our systems. And like I tell people, people who say that they have trust deficit. If you have trust deficit, you won't even come to your place of work today. So you are trusting something. If you don't trust the upholstery person, the carpenter person who made this furniture, you won't sit on it. So as a human beings, we are natural products of trust and sacrifices from one person to another, and we too give those sacrifices back. But how we organize ourselves, you know, to make sure that these sacrifices are coordinated, well-made, respectful, and all that, that defines the kind of better society.
As we were speaking, you know, my mind just went back to the period of the bombing of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Yeah. And the impact of that, you know, compelled world leaders to make some sacrifices, you know, given to their nuclear ambitions and all that, for peace to reign in the world, for the international system, for collective peace. Now, that was a great sacrifice. But let's relate the issue of sacrificing now with our beliefs, with faith, because that's the essence of Eid al-Kabir, where Prophet Muhammad, you know, peace be upon him, sacrificed his only son Ismail, you know, for peace. Prophet Ibrahim, Prophet Ibrahim, and all that. So I'm sorry, yes, and all that. So that's really the essence. How can we, as Muslims, as Christians, you know, because the concept of sacrifice runs through all the scriptures, both Christian, Hindu, Buddhism, Judaism, and all that. So how can we...
I think the guest in Kano is ready, so maybe you should
Okay, yes, so that's Dr. Saleh Momali. Dr. Saleh Momali, thank you. I'm glad you were able to join us when we were about to talk about how we can leverage, you know, the teaching of sacrifice, the virtue of sacrifice that runs through all the scriptures to build peace, not just world peace, but most especially national peace and development.
Thank you very much, and good morning, Nigerians. As I wish the Nigerian community and the communities around the world happy Salah celebrations. It's a topical and very important issue, especially considering the state of peaceful and harmonious coexistence in our country. I think the earlier speakers have given a good contextual background to the issue. Sacrifice is something that is inbuilt within the humankind, and it means that we have different needs, we have different beliefs, we have different values, and we have different understandings of issues and matters around us. Now, if these differences exist, how can we relate? How can we interface with each other? How can I, like Professor just mentioned, subsume or suppress my own individual needs, beliefs, and values to incorporate those of others around me? And how can we come up with a more acceptable, more inclusive beliefs and values that we will all adhere to for us to live peacefully and for us to relate in such a way that represent the spirit of the humankind? God Almighty, we all believe, as Muslims and Christians, created us as humans. And because of this, He knows how best He has created us. And for this reason, He sent prophets, He sent messengers to guide humans on how to interact, how to interface. And He provided us with laws, practices that will strengthen our coexistence, that will enable us achieve the aspirations for God's creation within the earth, and then have His mercy and enjoy the hereafter after the very brief period of our existence in this world. I believe the reason why the Nigerian Television Authority brought up this topical issue during this festive celebration is to draw the attention of Nigerians all over, from our remote rural areas to the core of our urban centers, that for us to have peace, stability, and progressive development, we have to understand each other. We need to recognize the values that every one of us hold dear. We need to recognize the differences in our beliefs and values and understand how we can manage such and sacrifice in one way or the other as individuals, as communities, as faith-based groups, and overall as citizens of Nigeria, so that we can all live in peace. By our beliefs and actions, we will not jeopardize the beliefs and values of others where we are on pursuing our own beliefs. In this Ramadan, the Muslim Ummah all over are sacrificing the ram, like you earlier mentioned in your background, which is a practice that is adopted from our father, Prophet Ibrahim, when God Almighty directed him to sacrifice his own son as an act of belief and followings of the order or the directions of God Almighty. And that was a test, which implies that as human beings, we will continuously be tested in this life. He accepted, and the test became a joyful event, not only for his family, but for millions and millions of generations yet unborn. From sacrificing his beloved son, a ram was provided. So from sorrow in his heart and his family, they now have a brand new ram to celebrate, to have meat, to have beautiful meals, and to rejoice. So this has benefited humankind. So it implies that any sacrifice we make for the good, any sacrifice we make will become joyful, will become a point of reference for future generations, will help us, provide us with sustenance, peace, and satisfaction of the mind and hearts. For this reason, it is very important for us to recognize that we cannot coexist, we cannot achieve peace, we cannot achieve stability without sacrifice in one way or the other.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mamale, for your opening shots there, helping us to lay a solid foundation for our discussion today. And we gathered that our Zoom guest is ready. Okay, the Zoom guest is still not ready, so let's come back to the studio. So, well, let's find out from Reverend Joseph. What role can religious leaders actually play in promoting peaceful values and conflict resolution?
Thank you very much. As religious leaders, as under shepherd, as our faith will call them, as people who are representatives of the Almighty, as people who are the mouthpiece of the Almighty, one example we learn from Abraham's sacrifice is obeying the command, the voice of the Master. From all our religious texts and scriptures, the Bible, the Holy Quran, the Torah, and other religious books encourages peaceful coexistence, encourages unity, promote the value of love, tolerance, forgiveness, respect. You can go on and say. Religious leaders have a duty and responsibility to teach these sacred truths. But it does not stop there. They have a demand to demonstrate this truth. And that was exactly what Abraham did. If Abraham had not obeyed God's voice and go for sacrifice, the blessing that follows, because in obedience to make sacrifice of his son, an alternative was made. In obedience to make sacrifice of his son, a bigger blessing came. In obedience to make sacrifice of his son, the pains and sorrow of losing the son became a multitude blessing. So religious leaders have one responsibility, number one, to demonstrate and exemplify this requirement of peace, sacrificing for peace, teaching about peace, showing the path to peace. If religious leaders do that, it's going to be easy for followers to follow suit. Show me a religious leader who talks about peace but do not practice peace, you know his followers will not practice peace. Show me a religious leader who say, oh, let's make sacrifice for a great nation, and is not making sacrifice for a great nation. There's no influence out there. So religious leaders must teach and live it. What do we do today? We mostly just talk about it. You know, it's not about we're teaching, we're just talking about it. And we are not demonstrating it, we are not teaching it, we are not passing it to the next generation. Abraham is our model today as a prophet because he did it. And so we could look back and say, oh, if Abraham had not accepted and obeyed the voice of God and took his son to be sacrificed, everything we are talking about today wouldn't have happened. If you are a leader, lead by example. You will say it as it is in scripture, but you will also show it. I've always tried to illustrate this in my own thinking that if I say I want to see peace in our community, but I live my life speaking against people of other faith or other identity, because you know the issues around us are mostly identity based. It could be religious identity, it could be sectional identity, regional identity, tribal identity, and I just paint every other person from another group not right. I have not shown any love. My children are watching. The impression from in the minds of my children is that, yeah, daddy says there should be peace, but daddy do not trust other people. And so they will grow and never trust people. So if I'm doing that, another person is doing that, 100 people are doing that, 1,000, because sometimes we need to see where our problem starts from one person and move to the next and continue to expand until you have millions of people doing the same. How can you effect a change? So religious leaders have that moral responsibility to show the way, to demonstrate the way. Don't forget that one thing we do enjoy as religious leaders is moral authority, where people trust us, where people believe in us, where people follow what we do. So if you are a religious leader, you do. I'm so happy that in this program today, though he's having a network problem, we have my friend and brother, Imam Fuad. We've worked together closely. I remember during the Ramadan, for 30 days, I had some time to go to Al-Habibiyah Mosque. I could see that every night, not less than 2,000 less privileged people were fed by this man through the mosque. It was such an interesting thing to see. You know, he's not earning that money from, so it's sacrifice to make other people happy. So now when it was beyond religious line. That's one interesting thing. I'm sorry he's with us. I need to say this because not many Nigerians really know. I had to come to him and say, look, man, I want to learn from you. I want us to do this beyond the show of Abuja. We went to Jos, we went to Kaduna together just to keep demonstrating this. If we have more religious leaders showing the path with example, in Abuja, in Oshun, in Kano, in Kaduna, in Jos, then the larger community will be saying, wait a minute, we thought that these people are our enemies. But we just realized that we are one, we are brothers, we are siblings. And so if I make sacrifice for the good of Abdullahi, Abdullahi makes sacrifice for the good of John, then John and Abdullahi, and by extension, our children, our friends, and others become one. So we are looking at peace. Peace starts with me, not just what I say, what I do, where I go, and how I relate with other people. I find that, and I'm happy that in this conversation we are discussing at the time that we have an example in Father Abraham of making sacrifice that the world today enjoy. So what am I, Reverend Hayab, and what are you, Imam Fuad, and others doing as religious leaders to show other people that this thing can work? It has worked before, it's working now, and it will work in the future.
And it will continue to work. Thank you. And I'm glad you brought in the aspect of Father Abraham, whether it's Abraham or Prophet Ibrahim. The fact is that a sacrifice was made.
If you allow me just a second,
yes.
It's interesting about Abraham.
Yes.
The three Abrahamic religions connect with this. So that's one other thing that we need to understand.
Yes.
When you go to Judaism, there's a connect with Prophet Abraham. When you go to Islam, there's a connect with Prophet Abraham. When you come to Christians, there's a connect with Abraham. So whether you call him Father Abraham, Prophet Abraham, whatever, there's a connect to Abraham.
And that is sacrifice.
It's the same.
And that is sacrifice. And
Right.
that's why, Imam Adeyemi, I really would like you to weigh in here into this conversation. And apart from what, Prophet Ibrahim or Father Abraham did in terms of, sacrificing, Prophet Muhammad himself is also said to have emphasized the importance of self-sacrifice for the common good. And what I have here said his treaties and agreements, such as the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, highlights the value of peace over, conflict. So I'm wondering if you could give us insights where, the practice of these historic Eid al-Kabir especially, if there are things we can learn that we can infuse in our efforts to promote, peace and unity, just as Reverend Joseph Hayab, has indicated. Oh dear,
Well, thank you so much, my sister. I don't know if you can hear me.
Absolutely.
You can hear me, ba?
We can hear you.
Yes, thank you so much. Let me start from the Treaty of Hudaybiyah that you raised, which actually changed the way things are being done in the world. Right from that, the Prophet ﷺ was supposed to go to Mecca for his Hajj, for Umrah, and he was with him, and they said no. Muhammad ﷺ said, okay, where did you said clean this thing? They said they can never use their hand to clean that Muhammad is a prophet of Allah. Muhammad said, okay, show me where Rasulullah was written. They showed him. He used his own hand to clean that Muhammad Rasulullah. Said, you are not the one that made me Rasul. That is messenger. That it is my God who made me. And he removed that Muhammad Rasulullah, and they were able to sign the agreement. But that peace agreement was the one that changed the face of
Imam Adeyemi, we'll certainly get back to you. I'd like you to complete, giving us the implications of that agreement and how it fostered peace, because we need to also leverage, from that to also build our own peace, because it is the same thing. No, you are from this tribe, I am from this tribe, you are from this religion. So there must be a meeting point.
Yeah.
Demola.
Yes, thank you very much, Claire. Let's come back to the studio and let's bring in Professor Ochogu now. Back to this conversation. You have listened to all the contribution, and from what you said earlier on, you based it on two components: selfishness and selflessness. Now let's come back to our leaders now. What role do you think our political leaders can demonstrate, when it comes to selflessness and sacrifice for the country's progress?
I think the whole idea of being in public office itself, is the fact that you are ready and willing, to subsume your own personal comfort and interest for the wider public interest. That is why it's called public office. And once you're in public office, there is a whole lot of things that is expected of you. Aside the one that your religious obligations and background holds you, the obligations you have to perform for your religious belief and all that, there is the one that the Constitution, the code of conduct, and everything, the regulations, guiding public offices provides for every public officials. And I think that if we follow some of these, the ethics in public office, you will see how everything will go, and it will go smoothly. And I'm just going to say one thing very clearly. I think that in this period of sacrifice, where there are exchanges of gifts and people in public offices have a bit access to some level of gifts and all that, sacrificing at this point of time is not for profiting.
Mm-hmm.
It is for distribution. You need to distribute widely to people. And I can assure you that if all the rams and all the cows that were distributed in this country this time around, if it were fairly distributed widely in the society, the price of these things will crash. That's to tell you that the price of a kilo of meat in the market, it will crash from 7,000 or whatever it is, to 5,000 or whatever, because of the level of distribution. And that is the spirit of the time. That is the spirit of sacrifice. And I think that public officials we all must, as a matter of urgency, begin to imbibe the spirit of sacrifice. Sacrifice to ensure that whatever priority are the 8 priority agendas of Mr. President, we work towards assiduously. Because the point is that we don't have time to waste in terms of how we try to move to create jobs, how to improve security, food security, and all the responsibilities that we need. And public office, I beg to say too, is not only for political appointees, are for those who are on the payrolls of the federal government of Nigeria and the state governments and the local government of Nigeria. That as workers in the public space, we must take it as a matter of fact, to do the things. We need to justify our wages. We need to justify our salaries. In several respective organizations, people collect wages without commensurate performances and all that. So in the spirit of sacrifice and in the spirit of time like this, where we reflect on the need for peaceful coexistence, nation building, state building and all that, individuals who are appointed or recruited and employed in the public sector must own up to their responsibilities. You see, I tell people that peace work is a spiritual work, so at times I get a little bit spiritual, on this matter. The reason is that for NTA, for example, God is not going to ask you about the overall NTA. He's going to ask you about what you're doing right now and how well you're doing it. The responsibility of the wider NTA is going to be for the Director General. Apart from the government, God also is going to require of him his accountability for the period of time that is in this thing. What did you do? What are the legacies that you left in place? So I think that in every area we find ourselves as public officials, we must first and foremost have in the background, what legacies am I leaving? Because depending on the time you are appointed, if it's 4 years, if it is 5 years, if you are lucky, or 8 years, if you are reappointed and all that, before you know, your frames and pictures are going to leave those places. And like I tell people in my office, the pictures you see in the backgrounds in the last 2 years, they weren't there. These are new pictures. So we must strive on a daily basis to see the kind of legacies we need to leave. And you have to be sacrificially minded to ensure that first and foremost, the welfare, you know, and the comfort of those who are working to deliver on the mandates also are taken care of to the best of your ability. And then you must show leadership by example. You must build that trust and confidence of followers and all that. And then before you see it, we are good. The same thing in the health sector, the same thing in the education sector, the same thing across board. And I think that if we carry this mindset, you know, begin to reset things, you know, in our society. The same thing with security officials, military officials in their respective places. The point to note is that our life must be an offering of service to the people. And not just service, effective and efficient service, you know, to the people of our country. So if you're in the security sector, you're in a particular beat, you must do your best in terms of being proactive, in terms of being creative and innovative, because the criminals out there are being innovative and being creative. So if you, on your own beat as a public, the president cannot be everywhere. The same thing with the chief of army staff cannot be everywhere. So the whole line of responsibility comes down. The Inspector General of Police cannot be everywhere. So the average policeman must be up and running with his sense of responsibility in terms of his duty. And I can assure you that if we do those things, you will begin to find the changes that we need to have in our society. And we'll have a much more peaceful society. And we'll enjoy ourselves, because the tendency for people to go to the wrong side, the incentives will disincentivize those who want to go to the wrong side and incentivize those who are on the right path, you know, so we can build our nations and make sure our nation go well.
We can build our nation and make sure that our nation go well. That's very good, sir. But because you said something that's showing leadership by example, and that has been the crux of the discussion. Most Nigerians, they want to see leadership by example. When the leaders will say, we have to make sacrifice for this country. And we see the leaders, you know, most of them living fat. And the question now comes, you are asking us to make sacrifice, and you are growing fatter. How do we go about that? Anyway, Claire, I think the other guest is
all right. Yes, let's bring in Dr. Sally Momale, who is the Executive Vice Chairman, Kaduna State Peace Commission. And Dr. Momale, thank you once again for being with us. And just like Professor Ochogo had stated, sacrificing, you know, that leaders need to be sacrificially minded to be able to deliver on their mandates. And indeed, the Quran did provide a very good analogy between good leadership and, of course, selfless and dedicated service to humanity. And somewhere, I'd just like to mention the surah. It says, indeed, Allah commands you to render trust to whom they are due. That's in the area of, you know, justice and fairness. And when you judge between people, to judge with justice. It also says in another area of the surah, and those who have responded to their Lord and established prayer, and whose affair is determined by consultation among themselves, and from what we have provided them, they spend. So there is a clear provision for how our leaders, political leaders, those in authority, clerics, how they ought to conduct themselves selflessly and you know, in dedication to selfless and sacrificial service to our country. How can we make our leaders to really abide and, you know, implement some of these teachings?
Thank you very much. It's like you cited the verses from the Holy Quran. There are very clear statements from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he says every human is a custodian, and God Almighty will ask him on the day of judgment about the custody that was bestowed on him. So leadership in Islam is not just leadership of government offices, it's not just leadership of public institutions, it is leadership at all levels. As a leader of the house, as a leader of your community, as a leader at any other level, you will be asked about the responsibilities that were assigned on you. So on the day of judgment, how were you fair and just to all your children? The ones you even born by yourself, God Almighty will ask you how just and fair you are to all of them. If you mistreat one, or you give one preference over the other, on the day of judgment you will account for that. And therefore, there is nothing that Islam has given prominence in terms of punishment on the day of judgment like leaders. There is a prophetic saying that on the day of judgment, every leader will come with chains around his body. He will be chained in all parts of his body, and he will be placed. And the only thing that will continue to remove these chains of hellfire from his body is his fairness and justness. Anywhere you are fair, you make any ruling, any judgment, any decision, any action, even if it is wrong, for example, out of human ignorance or human incapacity, once you did it with fairness and justice, God will say, yes, you did this wrongly, but it's because of ignorance or the fact that the human being is always incapable of knowing certain things or certain things. So, but that once you have an iota of insincerity or injustice, you will end up in hellfire, even for the slightest, the minutest of any injustice that you have done as a leader. We will account for it on the day of judgment. How can we make our leaders at all levels, especially the political leaders, the public sector, who are responsible for sustaining our systems, for enforcing our laws and order, for guiding society towards the path of progressive development, for ensuring fairness, equity, and justice for all of the citizens that the leadership has been bestowed upon them? How can we get them to do those right things? That is the work of Imam Fawd, Reverend Hayab, and our numerous faith-based leaders, because they have the responsibility of inculcating these deep-seated religious values in the hearts and minds of people. If they have been doing what they ought to be doing right from childhood, and they have bequeathed to this society parents, teachers at all levels of training with these values, our young people will grow up with these values and will imbibe these values and will live with these values. The second one is to work on our systems and those institutions that ensure accountability of these systems. And here we are speaking about the procedures, the rules and regulations in the public and civil service that will hold public workers accountable, that will ensure that anything they do outside the sacrifice that they're expected to do, they will be held accountable. Why are public sector workers paid salaries? In the past, before recent centuries, when governments become well established and then people are paid, in the past, leaders were not paid. You go to your farm as a leader, you go to your shop, you do the trading, you come back at night, you provide the leadership, you do everything. Well, you search for your means of livelihood. But in modern societies, we want to reward leaders in such a way that they are comfortable enough and they do not need to take too much time looking for what to eat and what to drink. We want them to serve, to work for the larger society. And that is why they are paid salaries. That is why they are paid wages. Any leader who is paid wages and at the end of the day take other resources of the public outside his legitimate wages should always know and await the day of judgment. He will find himself in the most miserable of conditions, as our religious leaders have continuously preached. So I think collectively, like Professor Alia said, and Reverend Hayab, if we work on our words, we work on our actions, things we do that promote unity, cooperation, peace, and sacrifice, and we back that with systems that will be able to ensure that there is good leadership, there is accountability, there is law and order, there is justice, there is accountability, and the needs of people are placed beyond the needs of individuals or people in leadership, then we'll be returned to the path of sustainable peace in all our communities, in all our cities, and throughout the country.
Mali, thank you. Thank you. Let me bring in Imam Faoud Adeyemi now. Imam Faoud Adeyemi, I do hope that our connection with you will be clear this time. But please, can you conclude that explanation on the agreement of Hudabiya and share with us how we can, learn from that example to also, avoid conflicts and build a peaceful and prosperous Nigeria.
I don't know whether you can hear me well now.
We can. Thank you.
Let me quickly start from what Dr. Ochogu said about sacrifice. I know this thing I will say will surprise so many people. I told people I did not have money to slaughter ram this year, which is true. I did not have money, but in the mosque we slaughtered nothing less than 10 rams and about 8 cows, which was distributed to people. And when a friend got to know that I did not have, people were shocked. I said, I don't have money to slaughter a ram by myself this year, of which at the end of the day, a friend now came to my rescue yesterday. That is a day after Salah, that I was able to get one for the family. It's not that one could not take from the mosque, but it was not given to me. So I have to drop this. I see this one as a sacrifice that one must make because of the position God has placed you. As that it may be, let me now move quickly to the issue of what do we call it? The Treaty of Hudaybiyah. The Prophet ﷺ was going from Mecca to Medina. Those who know the story, Muhammad was born and bred in Mecca. His mission started in Mecca, and the people of Mecca decided to throw him away. They decided to kill him when he started the mission. They could not believe what he was saying, and he ran for his life and he went to Medina. And on getting to Medina, God established him, and he became big, and religion was becoming much expanded. So you need to go to Mecca to perform Hajj or Umrah. As in the people of Mecca have agreed on getting to Mecca. The people of Mecca, from Mecca to Medina, it's like between Kano and Abuja, for those who know. So it's like when you now get to Zuba, and the people now say, we don't want you, you have to go back. They said, why? The people around the Prophet ﷺ said, no, we'll not take this. But they now sat down that they will do an agreement that this is the way we want to relate now. In that agreement, they said it's an agreement between the people of Mecca and Muhammad Rasulullah, the leader of the Muslim faith. The people of Mecca said, this agreement is right, but we do not recognize Muhammad as the messenger of Allah. So the moment, if you write messenger of Allah, it means we have succumbed to the leadership of Muhammad, which we will not. And there was almost a crisis. The Prophet ﷺ asked his people, say, where did you write Muhammad Rasulullah, which means Muhammad, the prophet of Allah? They show me. The Prophet told them that these people are not the one that appointed me as a prophet, so they don't need to recognize me. So if anybody says no, that one does not mean a quarrel or a fight. The Prophet asked them that they should show him where Muhammad Rasulullah was written in the paper, because he could not read and write, and they showed him. He now used something and cleaned that Muhammad, that Rasulullah, that messenger of Allah from it. And the agreement was signed and sealed that day. But it will also interest you that some of the provisions of those agreements are so strange that any sane human being will not accept it. For example, the people of Mecca said, if anybody accepts Islam and come to Mecca, the Prophet should not allow, and come to Medina, Muhammad should not allow him. But if among the people, the Muslim, anybody who wants to go back to Mecca, the Prophet should allow him to go. And they all agree to that. If you look at it, it look insane, the agreement. But at the end of the day, that was what led to the victory of Islam in the entire Arabian Peninsula. So it means,
Professor Adeyemi, now we are having, similar scenario in different parts of the country. I mean, some people are claiming some parcel of land, others are claiming this. How can we learn from what happened in that agreement?
Yeah.
To foster peace in these communities where conflict is rife.
You see, like you rightly mentioned, the first thing is sacrifice, trust, and obedience to God. If you allow things to go, for example, let me give my grandfather as an example. When my grandfather was the chief imam of my town in Odeum, many people will come and said, there are some other traditional worshippers. We will come to the house and his colleagues will begin to be fighting him and be insulting him, say, what kind of imam are you? He said, no, everybody has his own rights. We are all human beings in this town. That they come to me does not mean that, and they did not believe in what I believe, does not mean that we are enemy. So at the end of the day, the children of those traditional rulers, most of them came to my grandfather to say they want to learn. Today, those children, the children of those people, they are now religious, Muslim, Islamic religious leaders in their own families. What does this do? What does it teach us? The one thing that we have learned from this is that anybody who is too egocentric, that believes things must be his own, that whatever he says or whatever he believes or wherever he is, it must be what everybody must do or what everybody must do. That is where the problem lies. We first and foremost learn to come together and see the weakness or the limit of what God has given to you, the limit of what God has given to other. Then we now come on a table that this is what I can live, this is what I cannot live. We come together. At the end of the day, things become much, much better and easier. Like my dear brother and friend has said, Reverend Ayab, there was a situation in which we did a particular work together. In the mosque, there's something which they do. There's something which we do when we invited the non-Muslims to come to the mosque. There are certain things that ordinarily it should not be so. But because we knew what we are working towards, and that is we want the entire world to see this peace, and we want them to see that we are not just preaching it, we are also practicing it, and not just practicing it, we are using it to serve as a model to everybody. At the end of the day, a man came to me. He said, Imam, you allowed this man to come to the mosque with you. I said, what is bad in that? I said, the Prophet ﷺ said, he allows anybody in the mosque. And when you allow people in the mosque, they see what is inside. They discover that there is nothing that is hidden. There's an hadith or a wise saying that somebody is an enemy to what he doesn't know anything about. When people are talking and they're doing something, you do not know what they are saying, know what they are doing, you assume they are your enemy. Not until when you get there, you see, you now discover, oh, finally, so this is not what it is. I will also bring my experience in Abrahamic Mission on NTA. I wish many people will have access to the messages that I read all the time. Somebody called me one day. I met, not even the call, let me even say the one that I was able to see. A woman to my house, saw her, she was passing in my house rather. She knelt that she was me. I did not know she was great. She said, you are the one who made me know that Muslims are my enemy. That impression I had because I did not know anything about them before, but your program on NTA has really exposed me to now know that these people are not my enemy. And those are the kind of things that we need to in ourselves. Don't assume just you could not or you do not know what he's doing is enemy. You need to learn. I will also give an instance of Anu Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was a time when he got to Medina, he saw some people, the Jews, they were doing a program. Every time they see that, the Prophet used to see them celebrating. If we are to be some of our people today, instead of them to go there and ask what happened, they will be condemning them. The Prophet ﷺ went there. He said, my brother, what are you doing that every time you'll be doing this? They told him that they are celebrating the victory of Moses over Pharaoh. Then the Prophet told them, if this is what you are doing, I have more responsibility on Moses than you. The Prophet said, if I'm alive till next year, instead of one day that you are celebrating, I'm going to celebrate it for 2 days. And that is the beginning of Ashura and Tashura in Islam.
Thank you very much, Imam
Thank
Adeyemi, for that. You have spoken so much, talked about principle of compromise. We talked about the issue of sacrifice, peace, and obedience to God, and also the need for us to not just talk the talk, but we must walk the talk as well.
Absolutely.
So let's just take a break. We'll be back shortly. Stay with us.
Meet lovebirds Jayola and Adama Davies. Their dream of living together as man and wife has finally been fulfilled.
The latest couple in town, Mr. and Mrs. Giant Davis!
But an invasion by their troublesome families was not a scenario they bargained for. Her mother moves in. His mother shows up with his little niece. Then her younger sister joins the scramble.
You want to stay?
Married life suddenly becomes very complicated even before it started. Follow their story on this channel as they confront every challenge as it comes. Family forever, the story of our lives.
The lights are on and the stage is set for dreams to take flight. Who will be the next idol? Watch Nigerian Idol live performances every Sunday at 7 p.m. and you get to decide by voting for your favorite contestant. You can vote via website, mobile site, or by using the My DSTV or My GoTV app with no stress. To vote via website or mobile site, simply visit africanmagic.tv/Nigerian Idol. Click on vote, register, and then enter your details and a password of your choice. It's easy and it's free. You can also get AWOOF votes for your favorite Nigerian Idol contestants. All you have to do is download the My DSTV or My GoTV app and you have more voting power at your fingertips. Visit the website for more information. Voting opens on Sundays after the live shows and closes every Thursday at 8 p.m. Remember, vote for your favorites each week and you get to decide this year's Nigerian Idol.
Nigerian Idol Season 9 is proudly sponsored by Techno, Stop at Nothing, and Biggie for every moment.
We must all join hands to work hard so that we build a country for our grandchildren.
My hope is that we develop this nation where every citizen is given his due right. There is transparency, honesty, and integrity.
Put the interests of this country first and foremost. Interest of Nigeria is being one nation, one people.
The need, if I mean, to put things right, things that have gone wrong before, to try and put right. For this, for the love of country.
All right, welcome back to the program. Good morning, Nigeria Demola. I know you have your question. Please go ahead.
Yes, I want to just ask Reverend Hayab. Even in the Bible, there was this scenario where the mother of John and James came to Jesus and said, this my children, one should sit on the right and one on the left.
I made a request.
I made a request, a selfish request for that matter. And Jesus replied and said, no, woman, you don't understand what you're asking for. He said, leadership, actually, he now explained what leadership is. is that leadership is service. Leadership is sacrifice. In this context now, how can Nigerians begin to balance their religious beliefs when we talk about the need for tolerance, understanding, sacrifice, and peace?
Thank you very much. The truth about it is that this call for sacrifice has no class. The call for sacrifice is on everybody. Leaders, religious leaders, fathers, husbands, everybody, people. One of the illustrations I want to give is it takes sacrifice to appreciate and understand what it means to respect traffic rules. When you are driving, you may be in a haste to catch up an appointment, but the traffic light says stop. In obedience, one, making sacrifice for others, you stop. Because if you insist, you create problem. There are people out there who are in hospitals today. There are people who have died. There are people who have become orphans because someone didn't make sacrifice to stop and cost them losing their father or their breadwinner or whatever it is. So when every citizen, every common person, everybody makes such sacrifice, then our traffic will have less accidents, we will not be losing loved ones, we will not be having the pains we go through because of the mistake of somebody. And look, even if you are a big man, but you obey and make sacrifice to stop, you are helping the system, because the problem we are talking about here is how do we inculcate the spirit of sacrifice on everybody, our children, we the parents, and everybody, because we seem to be so much in the haste about so many things, and nobody wants to wait for his turn. Nobody wants to make sacrifice for the other person to go first, and so we end up crashing. And so if you use that as an example, you will see why we're also having it in, because those people driving on the highway, don't forget that the driver sitting on the wheel is the leader of the car. Because car may not be human, but he is the one in charge. When we talk about leadership, it goes just beyond you have people to, whatever is laying in your hand to guide, to control, to direct, you are leading. So how do you behave and how do you carry on out all this? So our community and our society today is having a lot of issues because people don't understand. People make selfish requests, as you cited that parable. People just feel that if I ask and I get it, then I have won. No. There are things you really not need to ask, because naturally they will come their way. It takes sacrifice to say, look, let me wait. Okay, show me a young man who has just enrolled in school. He has not yet written exams, but he's asking for money to buy a car or to buy a phone. Such person does not even understand life. If you give that person leadership in the future, you know you're going to have confusion, because the request of the mother of James and others is just the same, wanting we should be in charge, we should be the only voice to be seen or the only faces to be seen. That is not right. So we have this selfish attitude that will bring into leadership, selfish attitude that will bring into driving when we're on the highway, selfish attitude that will bring into even sharing things that's supposed to go to everybody. My colleague said earlier about sharing and other things that they did, and at the end, look, I've had some time in the past few years not really enjoying Salah as I did this time around. Why? I have wonderful neighbors who are Muslims. I was even away, but they feel they wanted me to know that this is Salah. And they did so many things. My children who don't know a lot were the ones calling, Daddy, so-so person. He said his name is this. Send this to us. So-so person. And I just quickly take advantage of that and I say, this is the right spirit. The spirit of sharing, making sacrifice for others, tolerating others. And I really went to study. And I realized that the Quran teaches that in this sharing of things, there is a certain percentage that you will keep for yourself. And there are some that you will give it to your neighbors. Then there's another percentage that you will give it to the poor. So it's not just do it, no. There's even a guide to it. You see, when you sit and want to make sacrifice for the common good, he talks about selfishness and selflessness. You remove your selfish thinking and put the one that unite, the ones that bring people together. So for peace to reign in Nigeria and for people of faith to be an example and a model of peace, they will have to go back to their religious teaching and see what is the Quran saying about how I relate with people, how I step back to allow another person to go first. Because those are all the things that are absent, that we see ourselves scrambling, struggling, and then we end up fighting. And when I don't get, the best way I will do is to now incite others just because I didn't get it. Unless we demonstrate that as religious people and help people to appreciate, understand that, look, in this life, you are not going to fight with people to get. If you fight and destroy people to get, you end up not getting it. The fact is that when you step aside or step back a little, not just aside, to watch, that's when you see what we call miracle. Because Abraham obeyed and did something, and there was a miracle. We want to see God doing things for us, but we are not patient enough, we are not sacrificial enough, we are not making any sacrifice. You talk about leaders making sacrifice. It is important that in leadership, you put people first. You think about them first. You think about their welfare first. You think about their peace first. You think about their joy first before you think about yourself. The fact is that when you do that, they will be the ones to come back and give you honor. Then what you will get will be 10 times what they have, what you left for them to go. Because in joy, I'm a pastor. I used to tell people that, have you been to the village and understand how the villagers do? If you go to the village and probably you have 5,000 naira, and you go with some 5,000 naira mint, that is 500 in 10 places, and you walk around, you go to house A that they're looking at you as a big man. After greeting them, you say, please, can you take this and buy sugar? When you do, if they know the day you are going to leave, you will leave that village with things that are far, far more than the money you give them. The fact about it is that they will even give you a chicken. And tell me, how many chickens do you...
Anyway.
Do they sell them for 500? But what I'm saying is that there are things we do because we have to look at it from the local position. Until we grow people with the values and culture of sacrifice, value and culture of respect, value and culture of tolerance, we won't get the desired sacrifice we are thinking. If the man grew up, or the young boy, the young girl grew up with that culture and eventually becomes a president, a governor, a minister, it's going to be difficult to change. But they've already spoiled even when they're young. They think, no, it's about our family. As you cited, oh, let it be my step and my siblings get it.
Reverend Hayab, thank you. Thank you. And I'm glad you brought in the issue of miracle. You see, God himself will not come down and perform the miracle. Man must position himself. And one way to position yourself is by being sacrificial. And Jesus, in the Sermon on the Mount, during the Sermon on the Mount, of course, talked about the fact that, if someone hits you on one, you should turn the other one. Now that's, they also thought about loving your enemies as yourself and other peace-making initiatives. So I'm just wondering, Professor Ochogo, how can we leverage, some of these teachings, both in Christianity, in Judaism, in Islam, about personal sacrifices? And like he said, begin to also show at our personal level, make sacrifices for the nation, for the good of the nation.
I think that my friends, amazingly, everybody in the panels are all my friends, from my brother Mamali in Kaduna to Imam Fahoud, and to Hayab. I think that...
I hope we are your friends too.
You are my friends. The point to note is that sacrifice is something that has to do with personal sense of responsibility. And anything that does not have responsibility, then it's irresponsibility. So there is that need for personal responsibility. Take that personal responsibility, a sense of ownership, of the things you want to do, for your life, for your family, for your community, and then for your nation. Because it is what you sow, you reap. When you sow goodness, you're going to reap goodness. When you sow evil, you're going to reap evil. These are natural laws, that cuts across all the respective religions, as well as human society. So you don't expect to sow I mean, to reap goodness while you are busy sowing evil. So if we want peace, and we need order, we need prosperity, we need development and all that, all our thoughts, all our actions, all our senses of responsibility as individuals, as group, as a nation, must be focused towards that. And I'm saying this based on the fact that in the country right now, we are passing through times. And we are passing through special times of sacrifices. Whether you like it or not, it's a period of sacrifice.
Yeah.
When Mr. President came on board on the 29th of May last year, 2023, the first statement he made, which was the removal of subsidy, was a call to sacrifice. The renewed hope agenda, which the APC government used, has its own spiritual inclination, which most people in the country have not known to key into it. And that renewed hope starts from personal level. First and foremost, for you to have a rekindle and a renewed hope in yourself as a human being that you want to thrive, that you want to prosper. It therefore means that you must tune yourself to discipline yourself to make some certain sacrifices. Same also with workplace. Because if you don't have a renewed hope in yourself, you don't have a renewed hope in your workplace, you don't have a renewed hope in your places of worship, you don't have a renewed hope in the marketplace, then you're going to face some level of chaos. So that is why I said the renewed hope mantra has its own spiritual connotation that every citizen of Nigeria need to buy into it.
Okay. For instance, the Nigerian workers, if the ongoing, dialogue between, organized labor and the federal government over minimum wage, what are your thoughts about the quality of sacrifice that you think can be made in that regard?
I'm going to tell you that in the minimum wage, in the wage discussion, either living wage or minimum wage, whatever concept or acronym has been used on it, there is a difference between the idealistic wage and the realistic wage on the part of the government.
Okay.
The idealistic wage, for example, you can say 1 million naira. Every Nigerian worker should earn 1 million naira. The realistic wage on the side, which is on ground, taking all factors within the economy into consideration, will be perhaps what the government is saying, we can't do more than this. If you are insisting we do more than this, then a whole lot of things are going to let go. Recall that in my earlier conversation, I've said that people need to own to responsibility to be responsible enough to be able to justify their wages. And I have been in the public sector space for a very long time, and I know that there are large numbers of people who are not worthy of their wages. And I'm saying this, in the spirit of national interest and national conversations, that we're having this morning, on NTA, that average Nigerian workers must, but particularly in the public sector, they must justify their wage. And if you are not justifying their wage, the government is saying, if we have to go towards your ideal that you're talking about, it means we need to shade off a lot. But the crisis here is that because we don't operate a social welfare system, whereby if you are unemployed, you can go and take some bit of
we just have to. We just, Professor Chogu. In fact, I didn't feel like stopping you, but we have to stop you. Just get a final. Yes, from Mamali. Yes,
Dr. Mamali.
Please, I'm sorry.
Okay, let's bring in Dr. Mamali now into the conversation. In just maybe like 1 minute, how can citizens prioritize national interest over ethnic and religious affiliations?
Thank you very much once again, and thank you to all our colleagues for the valuable insights. What we need to recognize is that everything is transient, meaning that it just happens within a very short period of time and within a defined space. So by the time we recognize this, we'll understand that every political leadership is a transient political leadership. Every contest over land, whether be it land, whether be it water, whether be it forest, is also transient. Ourselves as individuals, we are also transient. So understanding that cooperation and unity to protect the broader interests of society, communities, our environment, our legacies, which are far more enduring, which are far more long-lasting than every one of us, that any of our interests at any particular point of time, the more we're able to make better sacrifices that will lead to sustainable peace, that will lead to more progressive societies, and we will be able not only to bequeath better societies to the future generations, but even ourselves to enjoy higher level and higher degrees of happiness, joy within ourselves and within our communities. And again, like some of the earlier speakers said, this is even where we get greater rewards, greater returns from the appreciation by the general society of the good work that we have done. So it is very important for us to recognize.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Mamale. Because of time, we thank you for that, your thoughts there. But lastly, let's just go to the Zoom guest, Imam Fawad Adeyemi. Let's have your parting shots now.
We should know leadership and peace, they are interrelated. In position where you find yourself, you should know the way you do your things there will determine the legacy that you'll be leaving behind. We should understand that there is no peace without justice. No matter the position you find yourself, right from the wife at a home, right from the head boy in the school, right from the one that is leading other people, you should know God will ask you on the day of Qiyamah, the day of judgment. Do things that your children, when people meet them on the way, they will be able to say, this is the son of somebody who led us well, and we can do anything for him. Thank you.
Imam Fuad, thank you. Let's come back now to Reverend Hayab. Your
yeah,
final words.
In our efforts to show that we sincerely are making sacrifice, let's know that if a mother failed to put salt and maggi in a soup and tell her children to make sacrifice and eat, but the children later heard that she contributed 30,000 to the ashobi that women are doing in the community, it will provoke the children and make them feel that their mother is not leading by example. There are times we call people for sacrifice and we don't do it our own way. When we do that, we trigger suspicion, we make people feel there's no need for it. Let's set example.
All right, final word, sir.
I think my candid word is to say that we're at a time where the inflationary rate is very high. The market people must make sacrifices to ensure that the prices of these things are stable to a very large extent that they can, so that everybody can go to the market and buy stuffs.
And that's a beautiful place to just wind up today, Claire.
Yes, and indeed, Professor Joseph Ochogu, Director General, Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution, IPCR, thank you for that piece of advice, for all the market men and women. Dr. Saleh Momale, Executive Vice Chairman, Kaduna State Peace Commission, we thank you very much. Imam Fuad Adeyemi, National Chief Imam Al-Habibiyah Islamic Society, you joined us from Odeumu in Osun State. We really appreciate you. And of course, finally, but certainly not the least, we have right here with us Reverend Father Joseph Hayab. Thank you very much for joining us for this conversation.
Well, that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. Thanks for staying with us. See you tomorrow again. Bye for now.
And from me, Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak, have a pleasant holiday. Bye-bye.